Welcome to the Reality After Show covering MTV's The Challenge, Season 39, Battle for a New Champion, Episode 16, Family Knows Best. I am your host, Alex Trias, and joined as always, someone that I would never say with friends like this who needs enemies. It's Dan Montchal. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I think we have a lot to talk about today because I'm a little bit confused from the fandom as a whole.
Oh,
Because
same.
because obviously people are very upset with what happened on Wednesday, which I completely understand. If you're following along the season, it's hard not to root for Kyland, Horacio. That's what majority of what the fans were. And then if you weren't, you did hear a lot of Ed's name as well. But people coming out and just bashing it, like this is what everyone's been clamoring for the past, what, 3, 4 seasons is, oh, it's a vacation alliance. They just stick together. It's so boring. There's no drama. May not have been the result that you wanted, but we got the drama this week.
Exactly. We got something that we've been wanting to see on the challenge. Granted, as an Olivia fan, it was hard to watch this episode. um, Not going to support the move. We'll never support the move, and we'll talk about what should have actually happened if you wanted to have a different type of iconic thing. But you can't deny that this episode created a reaction. And like I barely see challenge discussion outside, oh, this season sucks. And out of nowhere, you're having so much more conversation happening, so many more of the casts like fighting online about stupid shit. This is what we've been waiting for. And now for you to just be like, oh, Olivia is horrible at the game and should never be on another season. They should drop her just like they should drop Jay and Michelle. Hate them all you want. Olivia created a moment out of a mistake, but a moment nonetheless. Jay and Michelle having controlled the game, yeah, it can be boring. But at least Jay is like giving us something to talk about how much of a gaslighter he is and how like if he wanted to be a heel moving forward, he's got it. And Michelle, it's just like hate the game, not the player, because she has all these people thinking that she's their number one. Like she's playing a great game. Like all the drama in this episode has nothing to do with Jay. It's about Michelle having to decide which person that she's connected to does she hurt. Like Jay doesn't have that issue because no one likes him.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what we could be seeing is I think we saw in this episode with this whole move, everything that happened, a star is born in Nerys. Like we knew she had potential. We talked about it last season. We've even talked about it a little bit coming into this season.
Yeah.
But with the moment she has getting betrayed. She has her pop off back at Berna right after it all happens, and then sending home. Most people would say the two best competitors so far this season, and how this happens. Like, if who knows what happens in the future? If Nerys ends up being, say, like a 2-time champ someday or whatever,
Yeah.
people will come back to this moment and say this is her origin story.
Her story on the challenge is so weird also because like you can tell she was made to be on reality television. Like
Mm-hmm.
you knew this as soon as she was on Are You the One. And she's even said that like for recently this week, she was saying how for Ride or Dies, she was like thanking Nelson for getting her on to the franchise because they like he fought to have her as his partner last season, even when a lot of production was like trying to get him to pick somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Who it was, I don't know, but you know what? Like I'm thankful that she finally got here, because now a lot of people are seeing what I saw in Nerys of like a star. Like, she's someone who, if you give her the time, she will like create this polarization of like, you either love her or you can't stand her, like that type of thing. And I'm on the side of, she's a star. I want this on my television. Like, I know the rumors are out there that she's already declined season 40, but like, that's fine. Come back, take a season off, come back for season 41 or whatever the challenge is at that point. And yeah, like I'm in full agreement with you. Nerys is a star. You also know by the end of this episode that production is extremely high on Kyland and Horacio, because they gave both of them full-fledged flashback montages as they were on their way out. Like, they love these
usually you only
people.
get at the finale, like at the finale, like people when they cross the finish line. And sorry, go ahead, you make your point.
So also, to all the tinfoil people out there, if you ever thought that production rigs, don't you think, with how they have talked about these people, that in this episode in particular, they would have loved to give Horacio the win instead of Jay?
Absolutely, especially so I see one of the comments in there, Bloody Money, is, did you watch Nerys's live? I did, and there's even, I had it on, there's even conspiracies out there of being like, at least from their side of view, so it's just from Nerys and Horacio, not saying that that's in fact the truth, but they're saying he did win the daily.
I wouldn't disagree. Like, it's so the daily's hard for us, the viewer, to truly know how people really did, how fast they did, because of, they're not showing us real time. They're not showing us something with like a clock and a measuring tape of how far these people are going. So it's hard for us to say. But I really don't feel like production would have, if they could have given Horacio the win, I think 10 times out of 10 they would have. Or TJ would have even just said, yeah, who cares about what it actually was? Horacio, you win, and get to see this big group go down, which ultimately, who knows what would have happened in a world where Horacio is the winner and he gets to save the crew. Like, we don't get this big episode. We don't get the Olivia betrayal. We don't get all that. We just have Jay being a dick more.
Yeah, absolutely. It was also crazy. So watching it, I don't want to say I was super spoiled on this episode, but I kind of was. So generally, I know you usually watch like the next day or right after, because there's a lot of stuff going on. And what I've been doing lately is, to avoid less and less spoilers, is I have YouTube TV, and so I'm recording the episode. And I generally start at like 8:20ish. And if I start 20 minutes late, I'm finishing right around the same time as the episode's finishing up. This week, I was watching the Australian Survivor episode prior, so I didn't get to it till an hour or so later than what I normally do. And I have a few friends, watch the challenge, and they know that we talk about this. So it's not uncommon for me to get texts about it. And it's not every week, so wasn't thinking about it. And so he actually texted me and was like, oh, I can't believe, and pretty much laid out what happened. I was like, damn it. Okay. And so I thought I was going to come on here and I was going to say A Star Being Born about Kyland, which, to be fair, I think you can make that argument as well. It's just Nerys ate this episode up. And I thought I was going to make that point. I think it was specifically going back to Kyland's star because of the season that he had. And what really makes him stand out more, I think, is because of the lack of the cast of the guys this season. Like, Kyland stands out a little bit more because the guys cast overall has been disappointing this season. It's been the females that have been carrying the show. But then you have this whole moment that it's just like, yes, Kyland has a future in this franchise. But Nerice's moment is so big compared to everything that Kyland did that it's like, wow, all right, backtrack that off the notes.
Well, you don't even need the backtrack. Like, we'll get to it when we get to the end of this episode and sort of rehash this about the people who go out and Nerice. But yeah, I leave this episode being like, I can't wait to see them all back. But let's start with Kyland, because Kyland, if above all else, is here to entertain, and I'm thankful for it. Because I don't think other people would have thought of the idea that he did of let's Horacio wait like 10 minutes down, all the way down the stairs. I'm gonna come in, go in full actor mode of being devastated that both Horacio and Zara are gone. Like, he's doing that to Nerice and Olivia and all that. It's just like, he's like, I want to, mess with them a little bit. And he does very effectively, to the point where Olivia's like in this like sort of like a moment of crisis through a realization of Horacio like being gone, and her realizing like these feelings that she had about him throughout this season, or being ingrained into her by Jay and that alliance, weren't things that she should have been feeling. And he sacrificed his spot in the game for her. And I'm like, because I was spoiled on this episode prior to me watching, I'm like, oh, this is tragic watching or listening to this right now. Olivia's saying all these things, and then what happens after, you're like, oh, so this is interesting. But she's like in full tears. But I really think, and Dan, like, I feel like there's a point here of this season for Olivia has been a lot about her insecurities and how she's having a hard time managing them. Like, through whatever hype that she had coming out of her season, the injury, feeling a little down on herself. Maybe she wasn't performing as well, or not given opportunities to perform well in this season. Like, her confidence is probably like at an all-time low. And so I feel like her head's just like not in that right headspace.
It's a rough look for her with everything that happens. This is where we really start to see the fan base turn on her downfall, is because she is having this raw moment, because I don't think what she does, it takes away from her having that gut check moment of being like, why did I ever doubt Horacio? Horacio's gone. I can't believe what I just did. And it's just a whirlwind.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like, because of the fact of like, and you talked about it last week about that he leaves being of Olivia being like, did I make the wrong choice for my longevity in the game? Because by siding with these people, I'm now on the bottom with them. But if I'm able to like come back, does that not only put me back into the alliance, but in the minds of some people, raise me back into it? So like, I'm not at the bottom anymore. I'm now maybe in the middle of this glob, and then that gets me to the final. Like, there's things that I wish we knew more, and I was hoping that her podcast was going to release earlier this weekend, because it was supposed to touch on a lot of these things. And and the thing that we're missing above everything else is her side, because she doesn't air stuff out on Twitter really, or on social media. We only hear from Nerice, we hear from Kyland, we hear from the other people, like, but we don't hear her side of the story. And that's the fairness in me. I'm like, I want to hear her perspective, her thought process over it. Because if she's also aware that it was a dumb move, like Kyland says, like later on, like, were you just unaware, or are you just stupid?
There were so many good quotes this episode.
Yeah, like I said, multiple stars were born. But it's so interesting. That's why I really like this. But so breakdown by her. Horacio then shows up, and you just see from that majority of that alliance how unhappy and how fake they have to put on a smile to be like, oh my god, you're actually back. I knew it. And Nerys just goes over to him, hugs him, and in Spanish just goes, they were all happy you were gone. Like, don't trust a single thing any of them say.
My favorite thing of that moment, though, is Nerys does get to go over and hug him. But so obviously, Horacio and Kyland are coming back. Like, I'm assuming they came back in the same car, and he's just, they stagger the entrance. But all Nerys wants to do is go over and, hug her man, being like, oh, thank God he's back or whatever. And she gets delayed because before she can hug him, she's kind of edged out of the way to give the biggest bro hug between Kyland and Horacio. It's like, you two knew you were coming back. And it's just funny that it's like, no, hang on, honey. Like, we're having our moment real quick.
Yeah. So, again, after this, like, because now you have Jay. And this sort of highlighted what was going to happen later in the episode, because you have Jay in the confessional being like in the full freak out of, we keep shooting, we keep missing. Now they have Olivia and Nerys right up in their pocket. I just need them gone. I need to put it in my own hands now. Which, like, I mean, like, it sort of have been in your hands this entire time, Jay, but I guess like you didn't have the win in the daily to start it and have your hands be the ones like doing it. But like, okay. But that's why I was like, there's certain things they read that I'm getting more in tune up of like, oh, this is the person that wins the daily. This is the person that's in danger, stuff like that. This turns into, once again, us being like, Berna, why? Because like, I feel like sometimes Berna just talks because she just wants to talk and say something. Because she's like talking to them, be like, oh, even if we were playing against you, like, I was so sad to see you go down there and potentially go home. And Kyland just like, okay, can you just like be quiet, please? Because like, why? Then you could have saved him. But if you felt so bad, why didn't you save us? And she can't really answer it, so she just starts attacking Kyland, like, and like, I feel like she was making fun of his brain, which also with him being on circuit, I'm like, Berna, like, you need to take several seats and go back.
It's been a rough season for Berna, and I still don't know how I feel about everything Berna related, because she starts off the season, she kind of feels ostracized and, different from all the women. And so you feel for her in that way, because you know that she's having to overcome a language barrier and feeling on the outs. Like, it's tough. But this entire season, she's just doing herself no favors. Like, it seems like every time where there's a moment where she doesn't have to, quote unquote, save Horacio and Kyland. Like, I'm not saying she needs that moment.
Yeah.
But she gets into these little arguments over the time that it's like, man, this is just a rough look for her.
And I do feel part of it is her language barrier. Like, yes, she can speak English, but I'm like, there's still a language barrier and a cultural barrier of how you say things and stuff like that. And especially with someone like Kyland, who, because of just like how he is, like, he's a little more blunt with his words. And that can be taken a certain way, even though that's not what he's meaning for it to be. But I think he did mean it when he's just like, Berna, like, I've been biting my tongue all season. I can't stand you, and I need to just like be quiet. but I think that's why she gets confrontational. It's like, and we sort of get more backing into why that is, because she's talking to Emanuel about like her relationship with her mother, and it sounds like her mother's very similar with how she treated Berna and how their relationship was. It's like, you just want to say like, I'm here for you. Like, how are you here for me? Be specific. And it's just like, it's so blunt, so like it feels like aggressive in a sense, or even passive aggressive. But I feel like that led me to like feel in a way of like, I can sort of see a little more for it, which is such a shame, because they only had this conversation on the show to pinpoint to Emanuel being like, well, I miss my mom, so let me call my mom.
I didn't feel great that was the segue that we got. And also, to be fair to Berna, like, her reactions, it isn't that uncommon. Like, that part,
No.
I don't think is
And
where
that part
there's any type of language barrier, because it's common for most people that if they feel like they're kind of being backed into a corner, the way that Kyland makes her feel, which rightfully so, he's not wrong on his side, is it's hard for people to just kind of back down when someone's getting confrontational, that they're just escalated. I don't think that has anything to do with the cultural differences or language barrier. You'd see that from people all the time who they're from America. English is their first language. That's just more of a human reaction.
Yeah. And besides that, like, yes, I may not be like the biggest Berna fan. I do like that she doesn't care about having confrontation. Like, give us something to watch. Don't just like be quiet and just stare like scared while other people are talking. Like, she at least does something. Give us a clap back, gives us a great moment with Nerys later on of like, I'm gonna pop you if you don't shut up right now. But that's like, and this is why, again, why are they showing this scene with Emanuel?
I
Why?
don't.
Like, it
Well,
had, again, nothing to do with the episode, has nothing to do about the game. It was just, we need to throw him in here, and this is the segue to have him call his mom because he loves his mom, which, no fault. You should love your mother. But it's just so out of context to everything else that's going on in each episode. Like, it, so screw it. Like, I still think I'm fully right. We're leading to a Emanuel win, and what's sucks is like, it's not like he's playing a bad game. It's a boring game, but we're not getting it through him. We're getting it through Jay and Michelle. So, like, if he wins, he's winning off the backs of other people, which, you know, good on you. That's the challenge. But it just means, again, he's just a boring winner. He's a boring winner, not good in confessional, doesn't confront people, really. It's just very passive aggressive, which is also not fun TV to watch. But he's a great competitor, and I don't understand why Jay wants him at the end of the final with him.
that's what makes no sense. Which we've already talked about in past episodes, is you can hate on so many things that Jay's done this season. He's burned a lot of bridges. His stock has gone down quite a bit across cast, across the fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Are we just getting a Jay flame out somewhere where he just gets, I don't think he's going to get purged because he is too good of a competitor.
I feel like
is it a flame out in the final?
In the final? Maybe like a purge elimination style in the final.
Yeah, because you can't just think. Sorry, this one I haven't thought about. This kind of just thinking out loud.
No, I love it.
Looking at, so ultimately for him, the results of this episode are good. He gets what he wants.
It's great.
And it's great. And it improves his shot of winning. But I guess I'm more coming around on your theory that it could be Emanuel winning because of everything that you've highlighted. And also, we've seen MTV edit, a quote-unquote boring winner. That isn't something uncommon. But the way that editing is essentially serving him up to the fandom to be like, hate this prick, I don't think is something they would do to their winner. Which is why I think he has no shot at winning.
I think it is something they do to a winner that they know they're not going to call back.
Well, I'm talking about with Jay specifically.
Oh, with Jay?
Do that, yeah.
I don't know.
Think if Jay ended up winning the season somehow, I don't think we would get quite as much of, let's highlight all of his faults. Like, I feel like we would have some heartfelt moment or something to maybe make us root for him a little bit more.
We would have gotten one like more serious thing about his like parents or his mom back home who like ever since Survivor, that was always the big thing of like her health struggles. We haven't heard, but if we did, it was like a very, very early episode of this season that's been on since 2020. But yeah, they would have like something like that, but I still think relatively the edit would be the same. It's just that he's overall better as a reality personality than Emanuel, so you would also get more screen time, especially with him trying to be this new era bananas, you know. But sort of is what it is. This does get us to the daily, and the daily is called End of the Line. This is a very stupid challenge. I'm sorry. This was just like incredibly stupid and semi-dangerous. So the contenders are just going down a rope that they have a bunch of slack on and a stopping device, and you have to like hold the stopping device to release the friction from the rope and go as far down as you can, the fastest, without falling and losing all your rope, falling into the water. The person who does it the slowest or falls the slowest into the water will be purged. The quickest to go down wins. It's like very straightforward. The first thing I thought after the first round was just like, could they, because they highlighted the shoes, because not only do you win 15K to spend on Under Armour swag, and they were highlighting the Under Armour shoes. I would have also wanted them to highlight some better gloves.
The gloves were terrible. So many of them had rips on their hands.
Why were they using? Why did they plan something that like? Did they test it? Did none of their testers have the friction burn through these gloves that were like thin as anything?
Apparently not.
Like I don't know. It was just so weird. But anyway, the highlights of this are James falls. He hates Conquest because he knows that he's actually not that great at a lot of stuff.
He's a terrible competitor.
So he falls. Horacio does pretty well. Like we see him go down. He sort of gets the hang of it, but you can't really tell about the time. But you see that he's pretty far down. I don't know how much more rope he had, or if it was possible for him to go lower, but he does well. And then we get Emanuel's going, and this is where Emanuel says that the bottom players started the war. And I'm like, no, you guys chose to say you were threatened by these people and then constantly targeted them for now like over 10 rounds of the game. Once you were able to get your first huge final threats of Big T and Melissa out. I'm like,
so I saw him being bashed for that, and the last thing I want to do is be any type of, supporter to Emanuel. In his mind, I can somewhat see it because he was one of the options early on in the game, where Kyland, I think it was Kyland said his name.
Yeah.
Or was it Horacio? No,
it was Kyland.
It was Kyland. And so maybe by that, he thinks that's the first shot. But even still, like that's just a rough look.
When you are playing the same type of game as Asaf, you're like, everyone doesn't know that I'm actually aligned with these people, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can't get upset when people don't know that you're aligned with them, and then they say your name.
Yeah, that was the only thing that I thought of, but that's just a rough look because...
by the way, part of my theory as well of why Emanuel wins is if anyone saw the exchanges between him and Nerys on Twitter, it's saying things.
It is. I wasn't going to touch it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm not going to dig further. You guys can all find it yourselves, unless they deleted their exchanges. But like. He I don't know. He's just annoying. He's just very annoying.
He sucks.
Yeah. Playing a good game. I will give him that.
He's a great competitor. I won't take that away from him.
Yeah.
But
He's just not a personality that I enjoy. But Jay, okay, so we have this other group now going in. Jay goes very fast, gets very low. We can't tell where he actually is. So again, editing's weird. Ed somehow loses focus or whatever and loses his rope, but definitely you can tell just from the edit that he took longer than James, because James just like straight up fell. um
Yeah,
so
which it's
yeah.
almost weird that I feel like the purge should have been like kind of backwards. Like I feel like if you just fell straight down, why do you get rewarded for that and get to stay in the game for someone who's taking it slower and
Well,
actually attempting to, I don't know, attempting to at least complete the challenge? I thought
no,
that was just a weird
I get what you're
ruling.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but also this same person is being rewarded in the game because he's cuddling one person.
Oh,
and
yeah.
also his elimination against Chauncey got everyone's mind of, oh, yeah, not scared anymore.
Yeah, no, come on, buddy. You and me to the final. Let's go.
Like, it's sort of it. Unfortunately, being a bad competitor can be a benefit to your game.
Yeah, he's.
But anyway, we also have Corey fall. So we know that it's either Corey or Ed that are going to be leaving the game. And then we know that it's either Jay, it's like Jay, Emanuel, Kyland, and Horacio are probably like the ones who did the best. And we get the first result of Ed being purged. And Olivia says, karma's a bitch.
It was.
And then forgets about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that has to do with Ed and nothing to do with her. She's perfectly fine. This is just a tough way to see. I would say Egg go, because there are some characteristics where I don't think Egg can ever be a staple or a main face of the challenge. I thought he displayed some where it's, if you wanted to bring him back, like I don't hate it. I think the thing that going through that's just tough is because we had that lull in chaos where so many people didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
I just hate seeing this many people get purged, because that's never been what the challenge has been about. You want to throw it in occasionally, sure, that's fine. You know, it keeps competitors on their toes. But the thing with the challenge has always been that if you screw up a daily, you always have the chance to redeem yourself in elimination. And so it would have been completely fair to be like, Ed, you did worse than the challenge. You can't be saved. Like, you're going into elimination. But with Ed, and then especially Raven last week, it's just tough to see these people go where they don't get a chance to fight back, when that's what the challenge has always been about, is you go home because you lose an elimination, not because you sucked at the daily.
Yeah. And at least he has a little bit of self-awareness. I don't know if you saw the clip that was put out from Scott Yeager of him and Derek's interview with Ed. Ed sort of like acknowledges the fandom for calling him out for his stupid move of saving Emanuel. And in his mind, he was like, well, Emanuel was like essentially my number one in the game, and we were both the people at risk the last round. I just knew it didn't matter what anyone else was going to say. I was going to save Emanuel. And his thought process on like why he didn't choose the other side, even though he realizes he probably should have. One was fear. And he was like, if I go and I save them, and then they're like, haha, like we didn't actually want to work with you. Now I'm on an island against everybody with no help. And he also had the issue of like, he felt like it was just too long into the game for him to really do that pivot. And I think that's an issue that we're seeing with a lot of the people in this game. Because like we see in this episode, Berna, Kyland, and Corey are sort of like this vague alliance, more so of protection, like because they know that they're nobody's number ones in at the end of it all. Like Berna and Kyland have Emanuel, but like Emanuel does have other priorities. But you have all these people that like don't have a spot. They're in a spot because of being a convenient number for other people. So, but you're so far into the game, it's hard for you to take that boldness of like taking the step of, okay, let me pivot and try something. And if I try this, maybe it blows up in my face, or maybe this puts me on the top. Like something could change, but I think a lot of people are in that mindset of like survival. So it's interesting that like, yes, Olivia's move this episode is a big betrayal of friendship, but there's a lot of people that are doing the same exact thing that she's doing and aren't getting criticized for. I
know one of the
extent.
So I missed his interview with Scott Eds, but I did see some of the clips from when he went on with Zach. It was last week, 2 weeks ago, where he's catching a lot of heat. Was he also said that, oh no, he wants to run the final against the best. And he can commented on Instagram posts saying that he was 1, Emanuel was number 2, and then it was Kyland and Horacio were tied for 3, which I don't think anyone agrees with, but that's in Ed's mind. That's fine. But it's just going through that. If that's really what you think and you want to beat the best, why not side with that other side? And so I think Ed's just getting attacked a little bit because there's inconsistencies that's being poked in this game, which is, I mean, it's a challenge that happens with pretty much everyone.
Yeah. Everyone that plays this game is
a hypocrite.
Everyone is in a glass house and everyone is throwing rocks at each other's houses. But yeah, so he goes, and I do find it funny that you have people being like Michelle going like Ed and Corey are very important numbers and all that. I'm like, so important that when at the first chance that you guys have to send somebody out from your side, you pick them. So how important numbers are they if they're the ones that you're targeting in a world where you can't hit this minority alliance? So whatever. Ed goes, good competitor. I would argue that he's one of the best competitors there. He had a slip up today, but like he has won a lot of the dailies. He has shown that he's pretty well rounded in a lot of these skill challenges that they have for the dailies, and he probably could have done really well in the final if he got there, but we will never know. The winner is between Jay and Horacio, and by seconds, and that's all we get. Jay is our winner.
It was 2 seconds, would be my guess. Knowing, the challenge history, it was probably 2 seconds.
Well, maybe 3.
Really spice it up a little bit. Like, they're on the 2
make
second
it truly
thing.
known. Yeah. So Jay is our winner, and instantly we get. Well, I just go rip to the alliance. I'm like, y'all are going in. This isn't a fun episode. But we then have Olivia now saying like she feels like she's in survivor mode or survival mode. And this is where we have Jay saying, I want to go to the end with Emanuel. I have to pick between saving Emanuel, my number 2, or my number 1, Michelle. And I'm leaning towards saving my number 2. And I'm like, brother, make things make sense, please.
I just love that Michelle goes about it in a different way where she's upset with Jay doing this, but we almost got consecutive weeks of like, listen, motherfucker.
Yeah. The New Jersey is very much coming out. But yeah, so not a great spot for our group here. But even still, you have Horacio and Kyland going, we need to find a way to protect Olivia and Nerys. If we can, we both are going down there. We know we're both going down there. If we could just find some sort of deal that gets them to put one other person that isn't either of our 2 girls, then we can find a way out.
Yeah, because in their minds, they'd assume it was going to be the same as the past week where two of them are coming back. And in their minds, they're two of the best competitors there. They'll both come back. So as long as it's anyone outside of their group, it's at least a semi-win because we're eliminating a number from the other side. Survive to fight another day.
Mm-hmm. But then now we go to Jay is talking with Michelle, Nerys, and Olivia, and they're trying to broker a truce. And it's in this where Jay starts by saying, I think I want to save Emanuel. And the look on Michelle's face is just like, motherfucker, what the hell do you think you're doing? This doesn't work for this plan because in this world, Jay apparently still believes that he's protecting Nerys despite it all, despite everything she's ever done to him. You put me in the sand. I'm like, you were never in the sand. Like, I'm getting ahead of myself because he says that at the club, but delusion. Just straight delusion. And
well, he's been delusional for pretty much the entire season. But I mean, still going back, this is all the way back to like the Brad episode. Maybe it was back to Darrell. I don't know. It was somewhere in that range where it was just, no, like I'm here to be with Nerys. Like, sure, I got to take out, her other numbers, but she'll be okay with that. And I just don't understand his point of mind of being like, I've done everything to protect Nerys and she's doing nothing to me. It's just like, Jay, if she wanted to take that direct shot at you, she could have done it several weeks ago when it was up in the air which way the vote was going to go, and it was coming between Kyland and Jay.
Mm-hmm.
She chose not to take the shot at you.
Yeah. So through this truce and bargaining, like Nerys is just trying to more so pitch. She's not even pitching for Kyland. Like she's more so saying like, if you like Horacio hadn't done anything to either of you and is a good competitor, and he would return the favor if you kept him safe. So like if you saved me and let me save Horacio, we can figure something out. And Jay says he doesn't want to fuck them over. I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? You've only been trying to fuck them over this entire time, and then you immediately go and so why are you being fake to your friend that you love so much and are trying so hard to protect? I'm like, brother, whatever. We've said our piece more than enough there. But the approach here is ultimately the fall person is going to be Colleen, and we find that out at the club. Mm-hmm. So we get to the club. Mariah is the one that tells Nerys about how Jay and Michelle are saying they will throw Colleen in with Horacio and Kyland. And Nerys immediately is just like, Horacio, they said they would keep him safe. So why do you and James get to be safe all the time when you guys do nothing? And I can't have one person. All I've asked is one person. Jay is making deals for everybody, but he can't keep the one for me.
It's just disappointing, not just with how the end result is, but it's just more of we see how useless Mariah and James are. That they wanted to build this storyline with Mariah, bananas, the cheating or whatever. I never need to see Mariah or James back on the challenge again. I get what you wanted to do. You wanted to have that moment of confrontation. You wanted to kind of make bananas squirm a little bit and be like, ooh, have this awkward conversation on screen. That moment passed. If your sole reason to bring them back is to have that moment in a future season, I don't need to see it. I don't need to see Mariah or James again. It's enough. They bring nothing to the table.
Yeah.
Mindless pawns. They don't need to come back.
But Mariah's playing like a good social game because like there is no real reason for people to want to keep Mariah happy unless they see her as a valuable ally. So because like if you got rid of James and you get that confrontation later of Mariah like complaining about James having to do the dirty work and her having to do the dirty work, and Michelle just like goes off on her, being like, "Look, if you were not here, James would have been gone weeks ago. I've been doing a huge motherfucking favor for you by keeping him in this game. The least he can do is do the dirty work."
It's the least he can do, but also Mariah's whole thing is like, oh, any shot at James is a direct shot at me, and you'll be on my bad side. So what? No one's scared of Mariah, like of what she can do in this game. That she isn't changing shit politically. Like, oh no, now Mariah's going to be upset. Who cares?
But yeah, so back to the club. We now have Berna who's like, I thought I was Michelle's actual number one, but I'm finding out everyone has it. So I'm going to test her by saying we should protect Colleen. So why is she so mad that a pawn, wants more power and more control and say over who gets saved and who doesn't get saved? It should always just be the people on the bottom or the people going in.
There's just it's a lack of understanding. This could, I mean, realistically, with how this is set up, with the how they're picking format, it should have been a great benefit to both Jay and Michelle. We see that it's not doing Jay any favors whatsoever because he can't get out of his own way. But realistically, I think it's helped Michelle moving forward because she only has to protect one person. You could criticize it for saying, oh, well, because you picked this, it directly impacted me. But because she's so early in being the first person that's saved to be picked, it does ultimately, I think, improve her chances of salvaging a lot of these relationships because she's not having to turn on them. So it is ultimately good for her in the future because she doesn't have to make that line of, it's clearly her and Jay at the core, and then which secondary alliance are we picking? She has a few options, and so she doesn't have to get her hands dirty that way. So I get that there's a lot to be said for people being upset with Michelle or Jay, and that's mostly just because he gaslights every female that's on the cast. But it is ultimately a good thing for their long-term game, like for coming back for future seasons.
Yeah, I agree because like Michelle doesn't have Maurice mad at her.
Nope.
Like, she doesn't have anybody really mad at her, as everyone was expecting her to have a bunch of hate. So, like, Michelle's just gonna keep being Michelle, and y'all can just stay pressed. But this is where we also have Jay gaslighting Michelle, because Jay wants Olivia in with Horacio and Kyland. It's like, no matter what, I only want the scenarios where they are in. And literally not listening to anything else, and then tries to like do this weird gaslight of saying that once again, like that he's been the one that's been helping them this entire time, and they betrayed him and put him in the sand. They put my game at risk. I almost went home. I'm like, brother, you were never in the sand, and it was your own guys that forced the tie. So be mad at Corey. You could be mad at Ed, but he's gone now. Be mad at Emanuel. Like, be mad at someone that you can actually buck up to.
I will give Jake, this credit, and it's not much credit whatsoever. But he said he wants to be, this new era, the challenge. The only thing, or I guess new era, out with the old, in with the new. Just like Jay, the only thing that you are safely bringing from the past into the future is the fact that when things don't go your way, you don't hold the men responsible whatsoever, and you just throw all the blame on the women. And that's not the thing that we want to be brought from the past into the new era. That's the only thing you're doing.
Yeah. Then after this, what I already touched on, we get this conversation with Corey, Berna, and Colleen, knowing that the order matters and they need to protect each other because no one else will actually protect them. Then we have Jay mansplaining and freaking out about all these fucking lists that he's made to try to get this perfect scenario to happen. Mariah obsessed about James. Michelle getting irritated, saying James can do the dirty work, now shut the fuck up. And then we had this thing with Nerys. Nerys, Olivia, and Michelle. And Nerys is breaking down, saying that she sort of is over all this and being betrayed and all that. And like she feels like Kyland and Horacio are constantly protecting her, and they're constantly the ones getting shot at. The least she can do is step out and give them a chance by leaving. And Olivia and Michelle sort of like talk her out of it, saying like, you won't want this to be how you end. Like, you don't want this to be the end of your story as you quitting. Like, if you go out through an elimination, go out through a daily purge, go out during the final or lose a final. Like, you don't want to leave the game by actually leaving the game.
Yeah. And I don't think that she was actually seriously contemplating of quitting. I think it's more of, it's not uncommon to see in these type of shows that she's just reached her breaking point and she's talking out loud out of frustration, that I don't think she was ever seriously going to leave the game. She's just frustrated because nothing's going her way.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what leads us to the selection. And this is the most active in a while that we've seen TJ be in regards to like the politics of the game. Like, I didn't expect as much input from him.
TJ loves his favorites.
He loves his favorites. He also likes, I think, making some people squirm, like Jay. But ultimately, he talks about like, what kind of champion do you want to be? Because Michelle's like, Jay picks Michelle instead of Emanuel, and this is where Michelle ends up picking Olivia. And there's this brief glimmer of hope that Olivia is going to do what needs to happen and save Nerys, who saves Horacio, who saves Kyland. And then the foot drops, the shoe drops.
Instead, we get that stupid flashback.
She picked Mariah, and we get the flashback of them making a deal of, can we trust you to pick Mariah if we save you here? We've been wanting to protect you, but we need you to pick Mariah. And ultimately, Olivia chooses herself over her friends and agrees to the deal. And this is ultimately sends all of her allies into elimination. But it wasn't supposed to be that way, as Jay points out. Jay's freaking out because after Mariah and James go, James picks Emanuel, who picks Berna. And Berna picks Colleen. And Colleen picks Corey. And they're like, it wasn't supposed to be Nerys. It was never supposed to be Nerys. All of my notes, all my things, that Nerys was supposed to be saved by Corey. And like Kyland is like sort of poking at them more of like, funny how that all works. Like, they're all getting upset. And like Colleen now is like aware, which we get the line of Colleen being like, with friends like Olivia who needs enemies, but I'm also like, with allies like, I don't know. I can't make a funny liner here, but it's just like Jay is like outwardly showing to these middle people that y'all are exposed, like expendable. I was willing to toss you guys away.
Because it was supposed, Jay, despite having all the power, continues to do himself no favors whatsoever.
Because Michelle may have been freaking out too, but we wouldn't know because that's not what we were looking at. We were looking at Jay just in a full freak out mode. And then Berna starts talking or whatever, and Nerys just like, okay, shut the fuck up before I punch you in the face.
Yeah, like, Corey, just let him go. There's no need to get in the middle. Just let him go.
Let him go. Let him go. But let's talk Olivia's move. Very bad move. Very bad. Like, and I think it does go back to the insecurities and just trying to survive, trying to figure whatever out, that she betrayed her friends. Because in reality, as soon as they say your name, you have the power now. You have the power. They don't have the power anymore. And you can just save Nerys. You can do that. You can save Horacio right then and there and let them do what they need to do. And then you are guaranteed to still have 4 people, and you're guaranteeing that this other side loses numbers. And guess what? When they still lose numbers, they're still going to need you. Like they're going to be pissed at you. They still need you because now the numbers are becoming more even because they would have lost Ed and then they would have lost 2 other people. Well, now knowing 2 other people, but you knew at least one other person would be leaving.
Well, yeah, Jay, that I guess if you're just saying Jay, Michelle, and then even if you want to throw Mariah in there, you're right. They still would need Olivia because at that point, that small group of like Emanuel, Berna, Colleen, and Corey, it's probably 3 of those 4 that end up going in. And so who are they going to be pissed at? They're going to be pissed at Jay and Michelle. So I think their best move still would have been to come back and try to grovel at Olivia's feet and say, we're really sorry. How do we make this right? Because I think it would have burned everyone else hardcore, that it would have been their only move.
Right. And yes, she burned bridges by doing this. But to anyone saying that she will never be trusted in a challenge season again, y'all are delusional. How many times have we seen people betray friends, betray partners, whatever on this show, and they come back the next season and guess what? They still have people who want to work with them, people who still like them. The same thing is here. She is at almost every single Challenge Mania event with all these all-stars and other alumni. She will be fine.
Yeah, that's getting back to my point, like very at the beginning of the episode, is the fan base is just an outroars because of they're upset because of the result. But it's like we have the drama here. We have everything that we as podcasters, we have fans have been begging for what, since like World Awards 2?
Mm-hmm.
We're getting all of that. But because it isn't the end result that as a whole the majority is rooting for, it's such bad gameplay. She'll never be trusted again. This is the worst season ever. I don't need to keep watching. And every other, trope that's thrown out there on social media. It's just like, this is what we've been asking for 2.5 years now. We finally get it. And you're going to shit all over that too. What do you want?
They just want to be mad. They just want to be mad. But like, they would have been standing her if she said the other thing and said, I'm saving Nerys. And then all that happens. And then obviously we have less of the other stuff because now her brother was proven wrong. And Olivia, when it mattered most, did save her friend. But episode titled Family Was Right, so whatever. That all happens. And this is the first time we also really see Horacio being like more, not saying he isn't human, but like we've only seen him like tear up or whatever when it came to competition during the final when Olivia goes, like him not being able to continue going, he breaks down. He's breaking down here because of this betrayal by Olivia. And he's just like, I always just say it's just a game and don't take it personal. But, sometimes it does get personal. And like, it's a real moment, a real thing for him. And him and Nerys are like consoling each other. And then you have Jay come in here with his notebook to try to, be the victim of this situation and say like, look at all these lists and all this stuff. And I was trying so hard to save you, Nerys. And he's like breaking down crying in a corner after she basically tells him to fuck off. Like, no, you're not sorry. Please just like go away.
I don't know. I think whatever Jay's going through is he's thinking something like, all right, people are mad at me. How can I fuck up worse? Because that's really all that he's done for weeks now is people already don't like me. How can I agitate it? Because for him to try to play the victim in this situation, It's astounding. It's mind-boggling. I don't get it. There's no excuses for him anymore. There hasn't been excuses for him for weeks, but it's just such a bad look.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we have the conversation.
I was going to say the one thing going back to the whole move, one of the things that I wanted to add is you can be mad at Olivia. That's perfectly fine. Olivia is the reason why, the people that you're rooting for are no longer in the game. You think it was stupid because she had the right move in front of her. All of these reasonable. I get that. That's how I think both of us feel, that it was the wrong move to make. But just calling out, if you are one of the people that are then going back through every one of her Instagram posts and just shitting all over her and tearing her down for something over a TV show, you are a scumbag.
Get off the internet.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I don't get. You can be mad at Olivia if she's doing something that she's tweeting or making a post about the episode and you want to throw shade her way. I even get that. But if you're going back to, it's not just her most recent Instagram post, but people are going back, several weeks for stuff that has nothing to do for the challenge and just lambasting her.
Yeah,
then I don't know what to tell you. What the fuck are you doing?
Very unpolitely, fuck off. Like, obviously, we both have a bias because we podcast on a network with Johnny Fairplay, who up to this day, with Pearl Islands just going on Netflix, is getting essentially death threats, and for him and his grandmother and his family, because of something that happened 21 years ago on a reality show. Like, grow the fuck up, people. Like, I was having a conversation with my family last night about what causes people to feel this need of not only just to go beyond throwing shade or being critical. It's like, I have this compulsion to tell someone that they need to go die. That I can't wait for them to be burned in flames or whatever. It's like all these horrible things. I'm like, look at yourself in the mirror. You may hate the move. You may not like the person on TV. Leave those thoughts to yourself. And also, maybe go seek help. Like, please. Like, if those are the thoughts that you're having, you need to do better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was just the one thing I wanted to add, because I've seen a lot of that is not happy with the move that was made. I think there would have been ways to make it so much better. I'm still not upset with what happened because we got some of the moment. Like, I'm upset with who goes, right, but we did get some good moments. Yeah, we got moments out of here, which was great. I'll just never understand people you've never met, people you see on an edited show, sending them death threats. Like, it's not quite the same, but it would be like, I don't know, like, I think people were dumb enough to send like Game of Thrones to the kid playing like Joffrey in Game of Thrones, being like, "Hey man, like this." Yeah,
he's out of acting because of death threats given to him from Game of Thrones, and yeah, it's just like, be kinder. Like, you can be critical, you can say like that was a shit move. Like, you're like you could be like a colleague. Like, if that's how you treat your friends, I would hate what you do to your enemies. Like all that shit. It's like, whatever, whatever. Moving on.
Yeah.
To, again, talking about Olivia, because Olivia and Nerys are talking, and Nerys decides to just air out the conversation that she had with her family to Olivia. And Olivia's response to this is just like, wow, Nerys was just waiting for me to fail her. And I'm like, I hope Olivia's like looking back on this and seeing, I feel like it's the opposite. Like, it sort of goes both ways. Like, Nerys, in one part of her mind, is probably seeing, is my family right? Is Olivia going to screw me? Is she actually someone that I shouldn't put faith in? I would like to think, though, that a bigger part of Nerys was like, I want you to prove my family wrong.
Of course. She wanted, I mean, this was someone who she considered one of her best friends. It's there, but that's not what you want to think. And I guess it has been, I think it was on some of Nerys's lives we have gotten more that now it's no longer rumor and innuendo. Like the rumor from her brother, it definitely was Anissa. And we got a little bit more context from Nerys of how that all happened was, I guess, through post Ride or Dies, some of, the Challenge Mania circuit. And you brought up that Olivia is very vocal, not very vocal, very present in in those communities. And so I guess post Ride or Dies, Olivia had a pretty good relationship with Anissa. Like they were friends. And it's when they were friends that's when she was constantly bagging on Nerys. And then something happened where they had a little bit of a falling out. And that's where Anissa made the message to Nerys's brother. So it was all for stuff prior to the season. It wasn't like, they found out what she was saying as the season started. According to Nerys, that's where it all came from. Just throwing that out there for a little bit more context.
And again, I would love to get Olivia's side of it and hear her perspective of the events that led to this, essentially. But ultimately, it does give us this moment. So we go to the elimination of Kyland, Horacio, and Nerys. But this time, only one person is staying. So only one is winning. We do hear from them on social media that they all were hyping each other up before it started, giving each other tips of things to expect, because we find this elimination to sort of be the same thing, different puzzles, but for the most part, the obstacles are the same. You still have to run, you still have to jump over those boxes or get over those boxes, and then there's a wall, but this time had footholds, foot and
they
handholds.
Made the wall easier.
The wall was easier. Still had the net. Still had the spongy, movable balance beam. But yeah, 3 puzzles. One was I guess it's a pentagram, but it was you were recreating an image using the pieces, and it looked like a bird. So making a bird. You had one that you had to do
tangerine
chains.
Puzzles.
Yeah, those tangerine puzzles. You had one where you had to link chains together, where all the chains would be 39 links each, and then you had one where you had to create 3 columns of using the pieces and then raising it up to a certain threshold. Get your flags and you win. And man, when I tell you, Star was born. Everyone Kyland was always out of it, unfortunately, because him and Horacio go to the puzzle first, where the tangerine puzzle, and they just can't make it. They can't understand it. So Nerys actually goes to a different one. She goes to the chains, gets that done, comes over to the same puzzle as them, finishes that one before they finish. So she already gets a 2-0 lead. So she's just struggling on this last portion. Horacio gains some ground. He finishes the puzzle. He finishes the chains. Or not the chain. He was working on the chains.
Well, he gave up. Well, he gave up on the.
Oh, right.
Puzzle. He gave up and went back.
On the puzzle, and then
he went back and did the chains. And so, and who knows how close it was with editing, because he got the chains, and then he was able to do the 3 columns and raise it. He got that, so it did kind of look like it was made a little bit closer, despite the fact that I don't think it was all that close. But I think technically Horacio does get to 2.
But ultimately, we get to see Nerys win and beat these 2 Goliaths in the minds of the cast that you just couldn't get rid of. Nerys was able to do it, despite how she feels, despite whatever was going on. She wins. And the pure enthusiasm from TJ during all of this, in one world, I feel like TJ was hoping he could say that all 3 of them win and all 3 of them could just go back. But
of course,
he did a great job of also hyping up Nerys when she wins. He was just in pure fanboy mode. I love this version of TJ. He's just in proud dad mode with these people, with these specific people.
I just wanted him to be the 3 of you, do you guys just want to go to Cabo, the 4 of us? Forget the rest of the challenge. They'll be fine.
Exactly. But it also was so cool to see a genuine friendships with these 3. As they realize Nerys' win, you have Kyland and Horacio just cheering her on of You killed this. Like, you did such a great job. She wins. We get the flashbacks for Kyland and Horacio as they go on their way out. And I don't know how you can't be fans of them after this showing on 39. And to my knowledge, I believe Kyland's on the rumored list for season 40. I don't believe Horacio's on those yet.
He probably needs a break.
I mean, he has been competing for as long as we've been podcasting, so.
Yeah, it's been like a 10-year reality show that he was on.
Yeah, let him and Nerys have some time to just, like, be a couple. You know, now Nerys earned that. But we get Nerys on her way back. And they picked a song, which, again, if they move to CBS full time, pay for music. I don't care. If MTV is able to do it as a dying brand, CBS, Paramount, like, you can afford putting real music on your shows. Because imagine it was just some crappy generic music.
It wouldn't have been as good, because you see the music come on and then you see the title of the song flash up. And I'm just like, this is editors, like, you nailed it here. This was perfect.
Like, it was such a good hype song. I would argue you didn't create a villain here. You created a villain for the rest of the cast to villainize her, but like, she's like an anti-hero.
Agreed. Yeah.
Or even just a straight up hero. You know, it's like,
no, I look at a lot more of, like, this is, like I said earlier, that this is her, like, origin story of where this badass is just completely brought out into the challenge world, and she just wreaks havoc from here.
And I think that's the case. I'm high on Nerys stock right now for this season. Like,
and
I'm still the mind that Emanuel's our winner, just because of just how the editing is. But wouldn't it be so juicy to see a Nerys win?
It would be. That's the storybook right there. As much as everyone wanted to, and rightfully so, raise up Kyland and Horacio for amazing competitors that they are, this is the story right here, where it's Nerys is the one that sends him home. It's so perfect that she's the one going back into the house after what just happened at the vote. There's your story right there. I never want to say, like, oh, like, you know, editors, you know, producers fix it for her to win. Wouldn't be upset if that's what they decided to do. Now, I don't think that's what they'll actually do. Wouldn't be mad about it. Like, it's the perfect story right there to her to come back from this. And if she can find a way to win, it would be outstanding. I don't think that it's really, you know, take the editors, you know, rigging it for a joke off the table. I don't think it's out of the realm that she could win. I still think she has a rough road, because from what we know, I believe we're going to have another episode next week where it's going to be the same type of thing. One person purged, and I'm guessing 2 more people go in elimination. And then I think we're going to the final with 7. So she still has a tough road, because you'd imagine she needs to survive the daily. And I don't see any world where she isn't thrown back into elimination next week. So she needs to be able to survive that and then win a final against some other very good competitors. So it's by no means a shoe-in or something that she's going to be in the finale. But I think she's as good of a competitor there as anyone else is that's still left in the game.
For sure. And partially something I can see happening, which goes into the storytelling. It's like you have this betrayal by Olivia, and there would be sort of like this poetic of the karma is a bitch thing of she did all this to try to put her footing back into the game. But by making this move, she loses her footing yet again, because something you don't think about is when you're in such a small alliance that's against the group, when you lose that whole side, they need new targets. They might be looking at, like, you did all this just for essentially one round of safety, because Olivia could find herself right down there with a Nerys and then somebody else, a Kyland, a Berna, a Corey. Like, there's Michelle potentially. Like you don't throw that burn. Like I keep thinking about that Berna line when they pick Olivia, or when Michelle picks Olivia, and you have Berna comment in confessional, and I'm like, I would like to think that would mean something. I don't want it to be against Michelle, but I'm like trying to read the tea leaves.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to ask you is, despite the fact that, Olivia makes the safe move to stay safe, say next week, I don't know, throw someone out there, like we lose a Corey, a Colleen, a Berna, like one of those three ends up getting purged. And so
Okay.
we go into the vote. I think there's a good chance we see Olivia in elimination next week.
Oh, I
Like,
agree.
I don't think she's done anything to really ingratiate herself back into the main alliance, that she isn't on the bottom. I'd honestly be surprised if we don't see her next week. I mean, outside of her winning, but
Right. And like, depending on who is the winner of this daily, I could see Berna's comments coming back around on Michelle being like, well, we can't let Michelle get safety early because then she'll just pick Olivia again. And then
what if
Olivia will pick Nerys
like
potentially.
what if like Emanuel wins next week?
Right. And he's going to pick Berna.
He's going to pick Berna, who will pick
Who's
Colleen,
pick Colleen, who
probably
will pick Corey,
Corey.
who will pick. I would think he would
Corey
pick
would pick
Jay.
Michelle or Michelle.
Right.
I think right, but I think that doesn't matter who he picks. There is he picks Jay or Michelle, and then the other one is up. And at that point, if we said Manuel, Berna, Colleen, Corey, Jay, Michelle, that's 6. We're losing.
You still have Mariah and James out there.
And
Maybe one of them gets purged.
We're losing one from the purge, and that would put like Nerys, James,
Olivia.
Mariah, Olivia, like all up for possibly going in. So I think there's a really realistic scenario where all Olivia did was save herself for 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, she's obviously, I think she's capable well as winning elimination, but depending upon who you're going up against.
But I put it at a disadvantage for her for this season just because of the headspace she's in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's not in this confident badass mindset that she had in Ride or Dies. Like, she has a bunch of self-doubt this season, and I feel like if she's in elimination, I just think she might crack under that pressure, and maybe that's for the best for her, is to like give her that chance of like realizing that she fucked up, and then do the work that she needs to outside the show for her next time, which she is also on the rumored cast list for 40. So we will be seeing her again, despite everyone saying her challenge career is over.
Yeah, and you mentioned like already, let's say, a weakened mind state of having all this self-doubt. Nerys coming back into the house isn't going to help that mind space, because Nerys is going to it's going to be attack, like make everyone here feel like as much pieces of shit as possible. So that's only going to deteriorate more.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see who gets the purge in next week's episode, because it's just like the log roller thing, but you're holding a rope. I would like to think that one, like the bigger guys, could potentially go like a James or a Corey, but we'll have to see.
And with the logger, like someone with the quick feet, I think that does set up well for a Emanuel or even a Berna to potentially win.
I agree. Both of them and Jay, I think, have a good shot at winning that.
Yeah, Jay as well.
So we'll have to see. That does wrap up this episode. Dan, you have been a busy boy for this podcast network. Why don't you tell everyone what's going on, how they can support us, and let's wrap this up.
Yeah, just a little busy bee over here. As always, the best way to support the podcast is become a patron. Become a patron at realitypatron.com. That gets you access to our secret Facebook group, our Q&A coverage, which is going on right now, which is Matt and Johnny's favorite podcast to do every week, where you can ask them anything and everything, and they will answer in more explicit detail than you ever thought they would. It's always a good time, incredibly entertaining. And with Johnny being over in Australia right now with a lot of the Australian Survivor cast, I can only imagine that the next Q&A he does is going to be jam-packed with a lot of juicy details that he can't share to the general public. So try us for a month. If you don't like it, Johnny will send your money back. We don't hold anyone hostage. If you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we're going live. If you're listening on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever, make sure to go like and rate us 5 stars. It just takes a second. It helps us out tremendously. We greatly appreciate that. And if you're looking for more reality coverage, we do have a ton of it. Right now, we have Traitors going on, which was released this week, that it's the #1 stream show across streaming platforms. It's been huge. It's such a great season. Johnny's doing coverage with that every week with Rachel Riley from Big Brother, as well as Traitors Season 1. He's been bringing on a guest from the current cast every single week. He had Sandra for 2 weeks for the episode that just came out on Thursday. He had Janelle on. So make sure to tune in for that. It's great coverage. You're getting a lot of insight because not only is it Johnny, you're getting Rachel, who has insight on the game, and a cast member for what's currently going on. So that's a great podcast, as well as Australian Survivor just started last week. We were going into week 2. What is it? It's Titans versus Rebels. I always forget the weird names that we have. It's been a great 3 episodes so far. Johnny and I did coverage for week 1 on Thursday. You can check out that podcast on YouTube or in any of the podcast feeds. We're still working on the exact schedule for what we're going to do because, like I mentioned, Johnny is in Australia this week. He's going to try to join us with maybe some, cast members over there. If not, it'll be myself and some other type of, maybe Alex, maybe Wayne. Who knows? We haven't gotten there that far yet, but we will make sure to get you week 2 coverage coming for that this week. So we have that coming up. We have we're only 3 weeks away from US Survivor coming back. So in the next few weeks, you'll see some cast assessments, as well as Alex, myself, and Matt Bischoff coming back every week. So there is a ton going on at the Reality After Show network right now. Podcasts galore. We have them in plenty, more than what we normally do. So we appreciate all the fans out there so much. You're the reason why we do this. And yeah, Alex and I will be back next week. You have anything else?
No, let's wrap this up. Thank you, everyone, for following along on our journey and supporting us. Continue to support us, and we'll keep providing our great content. But with that, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see y'all. Have a good week.